The story of this night begins long before the bright lights of America's Got Talent. Long before Simon Cowell stood from his seat with disbelief in his eyes. Long before the audience erupted into screams that echoed through the entire theater. Because this story began in a quiet corner of the Philippines, where a boy held on to a secret he never fully understood. A secret that connected him to a legend he barely knew. A secret tied to the name Freddie Aguilar, the voice behind Anik. The man whose music resonated across generations. And the legacy that the entire world recognized instantly whenever a guitar was strummed gently in the dark growing up. The boy never fully understood why people whispered. Whenever he sang, they would exchange looks, murmur words he couldn't catch, or simply stare with an expression that mixed confusion and recognition, as if he reminded them of someone they once heard on the radio, someone iconic, someone unforgettable, and he would shrug it off, thinking maybe his voice was simply unique. Maybe it just carried a certain tone, a certain warmth or a certain pain that made people stop whatever they were doing and listen. But deep down, he wondered, deep down he felt something strange, something unexplainable about himself that he couldn't put into words. His mother always changed the subject. Whenever he asked about his father, she would smile a tired smile, pat his hair gently and say, "When the right time comes." But the right time never came, and the boy learned to suppress the questions, burying them deep inside his heart, focusing instead on school, on music, on the simple life he lived in a small barangay, where every sunrise brought a new chance to dream, and every sunset reminded him that tomorrow was never guaranteed. Yet even in that routine, music followed him like a shadow, guiding him gently towards something bigger than he could ever imagine. As he grew older, his voice matured too, taking on a deeper, richer tone. A tone that made elders in his community freeze. Mid-conversation, a tone that caused old musicians to put down their beer bottles, look at him intently and whisper pranks. See Freddie Aguilar? Though the boy didn't fully understand why they said that. He felt it. He felt the weight of the comparison, the strange electricity in the air, whenever his name was placed next to the legendary songwriter. But he also felt fear. Fear of the truth he never dared to ask. Fear of the answers that waited behind the silence. His mother always maintained. One night during a local festival, he sang publicly for the very first time, standing on a tiny wooden stage, lit by cheap yellow bulbs that flickered every few seconds. And as he started singing Anik, people gasped, not because he was singing the iconic song, but because his voice sounded eerily close to Freddie Aguilera himself, as if the spirit of the original artist had awakened within him, as if the universe chose that exact moment to reveal a truth long hidden. And when he finished, the applause was thunderous, overwhelming, almost frightening, because he felt something shift in his life that night. Something undeniable. It was after that performance that his mother finally sat him down, her hands trembling slightly, her eyes filled with emotions he couldn't decode. And she revealed the truth he had unknowingly carried all his life. She told him about the past, about a love story that was never meant to be public, about a connection that had remained hidden to protect him, and she whispered the name that made his heart pound in his chest. She whispered, "Your father is Freddie Aguilar," and in that moment the world seemed to pause. The air thickened, and every fragmented memory suddenly fit together, like pieces of a puzzle he had never known existed. He didn't cry, not right away, because shock held him in place, because the truth was too big, too heavy, too overwhelming to absorb instantly. But later that night, alone in his room, staring at the ceiling, he felt tears forming somewhere deep within his soul. Tears of confusion, tears of longing, tears of understanding. Because now every whisper made sense, every strange stare, every comment comparing his voice to the legend. It all clicked, and with that realization came an even deeper question. What should he do now? What path should he take, and how could he possibly step into the shadow of someone the entire world admired? Months passed, and though the truth settled slowly inside him, something else began to grow. A quiet courage, a burning desire. To step into the world on his own terms. Not as a secret, not as a whisper, but as a voice ready to be heard. And that was when the idea of auditioning for America's Got Talent appeared. First is a passing thought, then is a persistent spark, then is a destiny he could no longer ignore. And even though he doubted himself, even though the fear of being compared to his father haunted him, he submitted his audition video, hoping the world would give him a chance to show who he truly was weeks later. An email arrived, an invitation to perform on AGT's biggest stage, and everything changed instantly. His knees went weak, his hands shook uncontrollably, but his heart pounded with a rhythm that felt like fate, like destiny calling him forward, pushing him beyond the safe comfort of his small life, and encouraging him to embrace the truth, embrace the music, embrace the legacy he was born into, even if by accident, even if by secrecy. And soon he found himself boarding a plane, for the very first time leaving behind the Philippines. Stepping into a world he had only ever seen on TV, screens. The AGT theater was massive, overwhelming, buzzing with energy. And as he stepped inside, he felt both fascination and fear. The stage seemed endless, the audience seats stretched out like waves in the ocean, and the bright studio lights blinded him momentarily, making everything surreal, like a dream too strange to be real. Yet here he was, a boy from a small barangay carrying a secret name, a secret voice, and a story waiting to unfold in front of millions. And even though his heart pounded loudly, he whispered to himself that he was ready, ready to finally be heard. Backstage, he could hear other contestants warming up, could hear the buzz of crew members rushing around, could hear the distant chatter of the audience taking their seats, and each passing second made the gravity of the moment heavier. Yet something inside him remained calm, a deep, steady calmness that felt almost ancestral, almost like someone else was guiding him, someone whose music echoed through the memories of an entire nation, someone whose blood ran quietly in his veins. And when his name was called, he inhaled deeply, stepped forward, and told himself that whatever happened next, he would walk off that stage with no regrets. As he walked into the spotlight, the entire theater fell silent. The judges focused on him, the audience leaned forward, and the world seemed to narrow into that single moment, that single breath, that single heartbeat. And Simon Cowell raised an eyebrow, studying him with that sharp, analytical gaze he was known for, asking the boy who he was, where he came from, and what he planned to sing. But the boy kept the truth hidden still. He didn't reveal his father's identity. He didn't mention the legendary name, because he wanted the world to hear him first. Not his story, not his secret, but his voice he chose to sing Anik. Not because he wanted to shock the world, but because the song was a part of him. A reflection of his journey, a mirror of the emotions he carried inside. And as the first gentle notes filled the theater, something magical happened. The crowd held its breath. The judges froze in place, and the raw, haunting voice that rose from within him seemed to echo from another era, as if Freddie Aguilar himself had stepped onto the stage. Yet something in the voice was new, something younger, something deeper, something shaped by pain and longing, and the audience instantly felt the truth, though they didn't yet know it. Halfway through the performance, the theater erupted into applause. People stood from their seats, hands pressed to their faces in disbelief, because the resemblance was too strong, the emotion too real, the connection too undeniable. And tears streamed down the faces of strangers who had walked into the room expecting entertainment, but found themselves witnessing something historic, something generational, something powerful, enough to shake even the toughest hearts. And on the judges' panel, Simon Cowell leaned forward. His eyes softened, his expression shifting from curiosity to shock. When the boy reached the final verse, the entire room felt suspended in time. Silence wrapped around the moment like a delicate blanket. And when the last note left his lips, it lingered in the air long after the music stopped, echoing through the theater, through the cameras, through every beating heart in that massive room, and for a second no one moved. No one breathed. No one knew what to do. And then suddenly the audience exploded into cheers, louder than anything the boy had ever heard in his life. Cheers that shook the stage, cheers that felt like waves crashing over him, drowning him in emotion. Simon Cowell stood up slowly, shaking his head in disbelief. His eyes locked on the boy, with a mixture of confusion and awe, and he said in a voice overwhelmed with emotion, "There's something about you, something familiar, something powerful." And before the boy could respond, before he could speak the truth he held inside, Simon took a deep breath, stepped forward, and slammed his hand onto the golden buzzer, sending a storm of golden confetti raining down from above, sparkling in the lights like stars falling from the sky. And the theater burst into wild cheers. Once again, the boy froze, overwhelmed, tears forming in his eyes, as the golden rain fell around him, as the audience screamed his name, as the judges smiled with awe and admiration. And in that moment, he felt something he had never felt before. Something warm, something freeing, something like destiny. And as Simon walked onto the stage to hug him, the boy whispered the truth quietly. So quietly that only Simon could hear. He whispered, "I'm Freddie Aguilar's son." And Simon's eyes widened in shock, and he whispered back, "That explains everything," before placing a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder. Backstage, everyone was emotional. Producers wiping tears, contestants hugging him, crew members patting his back, and he could still feel the warmth of the golden buzzer moment echoing in his chest, like a heartbeat that finally found its true rhythm. And when he looked at his mother, who had been watching from the sidelines, she was crying quietly, but they were not tears of fear anymore. Not tears of secrecy, but tears of pride. Tears of relief, tears of healing, because her son had stepped into the truth, embraced the legacy, and created a path that belonged only to him. As the hours passed, news outlets began to buzz with headlines. Social media exploded with clips of his audition. Millions of viewers shared their reactions, and hashtags related to Freddie Aguilar, AGT, and the mysterious Filipino singer dominated the internet. People around the world debated his identity, speculated about his voice, and expressed shock, admiration, and overwhelming support. And suddenly the boy, who once sang under flickering yellow bulbs in a quiet barangay, became a global phenomenon overnight. But amid the spotlight, amid the noise, amid the frenzy, the boy didn't lose himself. He didn't let the fame distort his heart, because he remembered where he came from, remembered the simple life, remembered the truth he had carried quietly for so long. And with every interview, he spoke with humility, with sincerity, with the same raw honesty that made his performance so unforgettable, and audiences loved him even more for it, seeing in him not just a singer, but a story, a journey, a spirit strong enough to rise despite the shadows that once surrounded him. Days turned into weeks, and as he prepared for the live shows, he practiced relentlessly, pouring his entire heart into every note, knowing the weight of the legacy he carried, yet refusing to rely on it, wanting the world to see him for who he truly was, not just for the last name he had inherited. And his determination inspired everyone around him, from vocal coaches to production staff, who recognized not just his talent, but his quiet strength, his humility, and his extraordinary ability to connect emotionally with every song he touched. The night of the live show arrived, and the theater was electric, brighter, louder, more intense than ever before. And as he stepped onto the stage again, he felt the familiar mixture of fear and excitement swirling within him. But this time something else joined the mix. Confidence, a feeling he never fully had before. A sense of belonging, a sense of purpose. And when the music began, he sang not as a hidden son, not as a shadow of a legend, but as a rising artist carving his own path, with a voice that needed no explanation, and a heart that needed no introduction. And as the audience rose to their feet once more, as the judges delivered praise, that brought him close to tears, as millions around the world felt the impact of his voice through their screens. He realized that the golden buzzer was not the end of his story, but just the beginning, a doorway to a future, brighter than anything he had dreamed of. A future where he would no longer live hidden in silence, but shine openly proudly, confidently carrying both his father's legacy and his own destiny forward, one heartfelt song at a time. The world continued to watch him, cheer for him, support him, and as the season progressed, he became one of the most talked about contestants in AGT history. His name linked permanently not just to Freddie Aguilar, but to his own growing legend, to his own rising identity, to the story of a boy who turned a hidden truth into a worldwide moment and carved a future from a past that once frightened him, proving that sometimes the most powerful voices come from the most unexpected places, and the most extraordinary journeys begin with a single note, sung bravely under the spotlight. And so his story continues, not as a whisper, not as a secret, but as a powerful reminder that destiny can hide in the smallest corners, that legends can leave behind unexpected reflections, and that even the quietest child from a distant barangay can one day stand under the brightest lights, move millions to tears, and receive the golden buzzer from Simon Cowell himself, forever changing his life, his story, and the world that listens to him now.